Hello and welcome to Political Chinwag. You're joining me, Scott.
Me, Jordan.
And I'm Zoe.
Did we all have a good Christmas?
Yes, it's been good. It's been busy, hectic. Getting a bit sick of turkey now, though. I've had sandwiches the last couple of days. But yeah, it's been good. It's been fantastic. Yourselves?
Yeah, I've had a lovely Christmas as well, thank you.
I've overindulged on pigs and blankets and red wine, so I've had a good time too.
I don't like pigs and blankets.
How can you not like pigs and blankets?
I don't know.
I'm actually offended that you don't like pigs and blankets.
I used to love them, but now I don't. I actually look forward more to the stuffing and the veg than the actual meat part. Yes. No, Scott. No.
Just follows on from a previous conversation, I suppose.
It does, yes. Right. Let's leave that. We've all had enough stuffing. First part, are we going to jump into stories of the week, which I haven't researched? So, Scott, I'll let you kick off the first stories and I'll let Zoe ask you some questions while I quickly go on to Times newspaper.
So, what stories have you got, Scott?
So the first one I wanted to bring up is a really sad one, and it is of the passing of Elle Edwards, the girl, well, I say girl, the woman who was shot in a Merseyside pub Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
It's just a really sad story, especially this time of year. It's believed that she wasn't actually the intended target. But what a terrible thing to happen. You know, you think you're out for a night out celebrating.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere. And you don't really expect it in this country, do you? We kind of expect it from other countries like America or wherever, but here at home we don't really expect it. So I thought that was quite shocking.
It happened in the car park, I think, as they were leaving the pub. Because I initially thought it happened within the pub. But no, it's happening outside the car park, and I think she's been caught in the crossfire. And obviously Liverpool, they are known for a bit of sort of gang warfare, so it could be a retaliation attack on someone that's went wrong. Obviously, a couple of years ago, it probably getting on to about 10 years ago now, when the young lad died from a stray bullet.
Oh yeah, it's terrible, isn't it?
There was a good little series on that, The Boy in Blue, their BBC series, I think it was. But no, I think it just shows you that really our violent crime in this country it's still bad. And it's not just, guns aren't just in America, they're in this country. Obviously, they're a lot harder to attain. We still have weapons that should be in war zones. And it's a shame.
No, I agree, definitely. It needs to be cracked down on, and my condolences to her family. It must be absolutely awful to lose someone this time of year, especially in such tragic circumstances as well.
Yes. Any more stories, Scott?
There's a couple. One which I thought was quite interesting is that nuclear shelter sales in Japan have actually started skyrocketing because of all the tensions with North Korea and things getting worse in China. People are actually spending around 39 grand on nuclear shelters.
So this is something that I'm quite interested in. Obviously, I'm interested in all the sort of combat issues or anything that to do with conflict. And I think what this would benefit, say, for instance, if, I don't know, say China goes to invade or North Korea then starts to strengthen and the US have to pull away from the Eastern Europe and then have to look into, obviously, the Pacific. It's going to take away a lot of funding, which will benefit Putin because the funding for the weaponry and stuff like that. So it is a big concern in regards to the way all these tensions are rising. And I think serious focus will be placed on the Pacific, especially from the United States, which is basically their area. During the Second World War, the US seen a lot of action in the Pacific. And I think we will end up seeing their MEBs shift their funding essentially, and maybe even a couple of battle groups over to the Pacific side to act as a deterrent. But we're going through very volatile times now, and I think it's people like Kim Jong-un, Putin, etc. They're seeing opportunity because our nations are weak. We've came out of COVID. We've left Afghanistan. That's seen as a weakness as well. And I think they've seen a great opportunity now to sort of up their marks. Putin invading Ukraine, Kim Jong-un. It's that situation there, I think, is quite scary because to me, and we'll find out from our guest in a couple of weeks' time what North Korea is like as well. And I think we should be worried just as much about them as in the war in Europe as well. And I do feel like next year it's going to be maybe a change in time now to see where things go. I think Putin's willing to discuss the war and discuss pulling out Russian troops, but that's going to come at a cost to Ukraine if they come to an agreement. He's going to expect to keep parts of Ukraine's territory, which isn't going to happen. And Yeah, but it is scary. And I think the way China's positioning themselves, the way North Korea's positioning themselves, the next couple of years are going to be frantic and concerning for all involved. And I think, if I remember correctly, Ben Wallace is actually, he's getting the investment you want in our armed forces, which also shows you another thing as well. We're not 100%. If that, to me, we're getting the investment, which I think is in excess of $1 billion into our armed forces. It just shows you the worry that's in our cabinet and the worry that's in our politics here in the UK. Because we are volatile. We are very reliant on the United States. We're very reliant on NATO. And we need to prove to ourselves that we can protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Talking of Putin, actually, today I did read that, I mean, it's just an article, but he's apparently being kept alive due to cancer drugs.
That rumours being around since prior to the Ukrainian invasion earlier this year. And frankly, I don't think he could be unwell, but he's not quite healthy on these videos. Now, who's to say when these were recorded, these news broadcasts? Obviously, Russian media is very well edited. They'll dictate how they want the wider world to view them. But I don't know. I honestly thought he'd have been knocked off before this by one of his top generals, because it's shambolic what he's done.
Well, we can only hope, can't we?
Let's not bash Russia anymore on this podcast, or else I think we will go missing. There might be men in suits.
Moving on to a bit more of a fun story that made me chuckle, I saw, is South Korea has lifted the ban on importing of full-body sex dolls.
Okay.
Yeah, just that one really made me chuckle. Apparently, lots have been seized, though, so there's more than 1,000 sex dolls that have been kept detained for up to 4 years.
Do you reckon they're a bit like game shops where you can get them second-hand, pre-owned?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh.
Bit of Ann Summers trading service.
Oh.
So basically, they sort of the courts over there ruled that the government should intrude into that much of the people's private life. So they overturned the decision, but the import people didn't agree with it. So they've just held on to stuff until eventually they're now allowed to release them, allow them back into the country. Interesting story. Made me chuckle.
That's so random.
And that's in the Telegraph.
There we go.
One thing that was big in the news, obviously, Boxing Day hunts. Always a big subject, and it's something that we're hoping to get some guests on to discuss in obviously later podcasts. But there's been a lot of protests against Boxing Day hunts. I know you're a supporter of them, Scott. I know I quite enjoy the Boxing Day hunts, etc. Zoe, I'm not too sure on your subject. I don't actually mean the killing of foxes, just to clarify.
No, he means trail hunts where they lay a scent and then the hounds follow the scent and then people on horses just jump fences.
I don't agree with the killing of foxes. But yeah, it's one of those big things. I just think they look pretty cool in the red jackets, to be honest with you. I say bring back the red uniform on the battlefield.
You just want the knee-high boots, don't you, John?
I've got a pair, mate, when I'm Jordina on weekends. Hard to find in size 11.
You're not shopping in the right places then, are you? That kind of ties us into our next subject quite well, actually, doesn't it?
Yes, sorry, yes. I was a bit concerned where we were going there. It does, yes. So Zoe's quite passionate about this subject.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the Gender Recognition Reform Bill obviously has been dominating the news. Was it the last week? It's been lots of people have been pretty vocal about it. Well, I guess so. Well, what do you think about it?
I think it's good, but the only concern I have is about in the bill where it says is that anyone is from the age of 16. So we could have 16, 17-year-olds who are obviously still children, still extremely young, that are going to be able to apply for this gender recognition and completely change their gender without having to go through the whole, where they have psychological test in England and then obviously a decision gets made.
Yeah, it's pretty.
This is they can just go and do it, and I just worry that for those that okay. So I suppose there's an argument that can be had on both sides. If genuinely they know that they're in the wrong gender and they want to make that change, then fine. But if it become, I don't want to say like a trend as such, but if one person in their friendship group does it and they get the attention from that, are we suddenly going to have a load of young adults all wanting to change their gender?
I think they should. I'm not entirely against it, but it's just there's so many things in it that are open to abuse. I think. I mean, I'm not anywhere near 18 or 16 anymore, but I didn't know who I was at 16, 18, 25. I didn't really know what I was about. So to make a decision, I mean, it's only a legal thing, isn't it? It's not an actual physical change. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like a get out clause as such, where I assume you can revert back. I'm sure it's just as easy to go back as it is to.
Yeah.
I also worry there's lots of pressure on public services to not misgender. And I do worry that perhaps things won't be done properly. So, for example, I'm thinking like if a man transitions to a woman and they go to the doctor for, I don't know, a smear test, like what happens? Do we, does it happen? Doesn't it happen? Do they do something different? Or what if they develop cancer and it's prostate cancer? Is it still as an open conversation as it would be if it was just someone who identifies as a man talking to the doctor as a man, or is the doctor going to be like, well, I don't want to get misgendered here, so we're going to ignore the fact you have a prostate and we're going to say it's something else. There's just lots of things like that worry me.
On the subject of it, my little ones watch a lot of YouTubers. And my partner was telling me, so they had one on the telly yesterday, and it's a family. They've got millions of subscribers. I can't think of the name. I won't name them either way, but effectively one of their sons had always apparently played with doll prams and all this, and he's only about 7, I think. And they went out and they've changed his name legally and everything to a girl's name, because he played with prams and stuff. To me, I don't think they had the right to do that. And I don't like, maybe because they've got 2 boys, maybe they've always wanted a girl, and maybe he was the little girl that played with prams and stuff like that. But to me, my little boy plays with prams, my girls play with the guns. It doesn't, what they play with doesn't dictate on their gender. He could be playing with a pram and be pretending to be the dad. And what's frustrating all is he may have been into all the girly stuff, like the Barbie dolls, stuff like that. But at such a young age, they've decided to change his name. Now, he can realistically say, oh, yes, I'd rather have that girl name than my boy name. I'd rather be a girl than a boy. Because he doesn't understand, at that age, you do not understand the true differences between boy and a girl. The sort of, the reasons why you need boys and the reasons why you need girls. And to me, at such a young age, to have that decision essentially put on you by your parents, I think was incorrect. And that this is a YouTube sort of family that vlog their lives, and they've got, like I say, millions of subscribers. They've got they've got news stories about. And I said to my missus, and I could be wrong in this, and this could get us a lot of stick, but it sounded more like a PR move from them, because they know fine well it's on topic and it's an opportunity to get their YouTube name out there, because the papers are going to publish them. They're already famous. It's not like they're unknown YouTubers. They're very well known. They've made a lot of money through YouTube, and they've went out and changed a very, very young child's gender, albeit probably is legally not so, and definitely not in regards to scientifically. But in regards to the name and everything, and to me, that there, it could cause a lot of stigma towards the young child. It could cause a lot of bullying, essentially, as well, towards them, and confusion in themselves.
I think it should be the individual's choice. I don't think your parents should get to choose what you are.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm just getting, obviously, what my partner said, and then watching it, and she said, oh, well, they used to be called so-and-so, and now they're called this because the parents decided that he wanted to be a girl. That's just wrong in my eyes. And I personally think it was a PR move against them. It might not have been. He might truly want to be a girl. And if so, good on them. I wish them all the best. But I don't know how you can decide, even as a late teen, what gender you want to be or what gender you should have been born.
That's just too difficult a choice, isn't it?
Kids are already confused. Children are already overly stressed with exams, GCSEs, becoming an adult, leaving school, looking for work. They're absolutely stressed to bits, and we have a serious issue, in fact, a mental health pandemic in this country. And I think stuff like this, it just doesn't help the situations. yes, we should be accepting. If someone wants to be a girl if they're already a boy, or vice versa, accept it, move on. That's what the if that's
Yeah,
what they want to be.
exactly.
Yes, I don't understand why we create such a big stink up of other people's choices.
I don't either. I don't understand all the hate about it that you see on social media. By someone changing their gender doesn't affect us personally, does it really?
So what just for out of curiosity, what sort of things have people said online against trans people?
So you see a lot about sort of trans women or men in sports. That obviously comes up a lot.
So the thing that I thought about with, because Zoe, you're quite pro a lot of this, aren't you? Like
Yeah.
not just this, but also violence against women and girls. And I thought this would be an interesting one for me to talk to you about, because this is where two of these things kind of cross over. And I think that's where some of the arguments are. So I think a lot of people are concerned. Again, these are overly exaggerated, but a lot of people are saying they're concerned that someone who wants to get into only female spaces will then abuse it, transition legally, then access female spaces, which I kind of understand. I get people feeling uncomfortable. I mean, what do you think about that?
I can understand people's concerns, but at the same time, I'm not, obviously it could happen and things could happen.
It's a slim chance, I imagine, but it's just
any trans person that I know has never transitioned because they, say, for example, want to get into a women's toilets to
no. But a lot of people,
abuse.
like I've got trans friends, and they've had to go through a very strenuous process, haven't they? Even to be able to get onto the hormone treatments and stuff, just to get that far. But this is pretty much saying that you can then turn up, sign a document saying you identify as female, then you're legally female, then you're going to be accessing other places. So I get people's concern from that perspective, but I imagine it's going to be slim to none, you know. But because it's so much easier, that, you know, I can't imagine, I don't know, a registered sex offender going, if I go to the doctors, say I'm this, and it's just not going to happen. But I think if they can just go somewhere, sign something, then it will be much easier for them to access those places. I also wondered how it would work in regards to when it comes to going to prison.
Yeah.
Could you transition before you go into prison because you think as a man it'd be easier to survive in a women's prison? Or because you want to take advantage of being in a women's prison? I mean, I'm being very sceptical in you know, out there with it, but it's just lots of things that cross my mind because I'm not a trans person, I'm not a woman, but it's just...
There is, and I suppose that there is the risk that could happen.
I mean, it's minimal, I'm sure, but it's just. I think these are the questions that are being asked.
Yeah, but then I suppose as well, it depends how far into in terms of, say, going to prison, how far into their transition it is. Like, where does the line for it? Do you go to a women's prison because you're saying you identify as a woman, or do they literally, until you've had
it dropped off, essentially, is what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah. I was trying to be polite.
Yeah, but that's something. I think this is a subject where it comes down to whose rights are more important. I mean, that's how I perceive it. You know, I got no skin in the game, but you know, do women have the right? Cis women or biological women, do they have more of a right to not have people that are essentially male physically come into their spaces? Or does the person transition have more of a right to access their spaces? And I think it's always going to be a conflicting point. Always. I think for a long time it's going to be an issue that keeps coming up.
I think
but I feel for both sides.
I think with everything like this, though, no matter what, if it's not the traditional look or not what we're used to, there's going to be skepticism. There's going to be potential issues like what you've just mentioned there before, and issues of people trying to get into areas where it's women only. But in every walk of life, and everywhere where there's a minority, etc., you're going to have those arguments. And I think the main thing here is we're in a transition period as a nation to understanding transgender and understanding the whole host of... It was only a couple of years ago, it was only a couple of decades ago, you weren't allowed to be gay legally. So they couldn't even marry gay people until the Conservatives made it legal. And I think it is vital to understand that we're still in the transition period in regards to understanding as a nation how the landscape has changed. And I think realistically, we'll have these conversations for the next potential decade until we fully. It's big news. It's big stories. It's always going to be in the news, and while it's in the news, there's going to be people who are skeptical of it. There's going to be these accusations that people.
I got to say that it's definitely moved far faster than any other previous sort of movement to get rights for someone. I mean, it's moved so quick. I mean, probably a decade. We've gone much further.
Is that not just a credit to democracy that we live in now?
Oh, I'm not criticising, but I'm saying it has moved much faster. And I think change takes time, doesn't it, socially? I think people struggle to adapt to things as much. I mean, I still know people that are at a certain age don't like gay people. It just takes time, doesn't it?
It's one of those things where I think a lot of things will move quicker now. We'll notice this in years and years to come because social media is readily available. So news, story, information it's in your face. It's on social media all the time. Whereas back in the 70s, the 80s, etc., you didn't have the online social media realms where people were posting, obviously, the support. And the only way you could see the increase in support is by going to actual rallies, going to protests, and seeing the support there. Whereas now it's very easy to gain support online, but it's also very easy for people to voice their own concerns or voice their own hatred towards an idea. Yeah. And that's both a credit to advancements of social media, the online realm. It's also, I think, the way we've pushed this through Parliament, etc. I think it's proof of democracy. It's proof that we're willing to accept change. We're willing to, as a nation, we're not going to. We are modernising our country, I think, and I think it's only right that we do. In regards, going back to the sports that you mentioned and whether it should be allowed in, obviously, gender-based sports, I personally don't think people that's transitioned to a woman should be able to compete on a professional level in sport because there is that advantage that's been given. Until it's shown that they haven't got the advantage, such as I'm not a scientist to fully explain it, but if someone's going to transition and they're going to compete in professional sport against the complete gender than what they did previously do, I don't know, let's just say boxing, for instance. So say if you went from boxing as a male to then go as a female, okay? And you've still got all the hormones and the strength of what a male person would have over the female person. Is that then fair for them to then go up against a title? Was it the swimmer that transitioned and done successful in swimming?
Yeah. And there was a powerlifter in the Olympics, so wasn't there?
I think that's where there's going to be a lot of red tape, and I think that's where people's opinions are going to be split a lot more than usual, and the less acceptance.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some sports they could compete in against men.
It'd be interesting to actually see some sports transition to multi-gender.
Football, they could. I mean, it's more contact sports I'm concerned about, like UFC.
It'd be interesting to see a league where male and female footballers play together cohesively. Because there's some female footballers. I enjoy watching the female international football games more than what I enjoy watching the men's games. No, Scott. There's some cracking players that play for the England football team and the female team. And I think there is opportunity there to see a sort of a cross-gender sports. And I think really that's the path we're on. I don't think we're there yet. I think we're still maybe these 2 decades off that. But I think eventually we will see more sports be cross-gender. Yeah. And it will have to be because of the changes in society we're having now.
I wanted to talk about the sort of legislative side of it as well. So I was reading about Section 35 of the Scotland Act 1998 that basically gives England the power to veto any bills put forward by Scotland and the First Minister, essentially on the basis that the Scotland Act basically says that we devolve some powers for Scotland to manage their own affairs, doesn't it? So they can make laws, but there's a certain schedule of them which they aren't allowed to. But Section 35, from what I interpret, states that if there's anything to do with that new law that's going to be passed that may have adverse effects, that then it can be vetoed and prevented from going to royal assent. So I guess perhaps that's some of the issues that I've sort of raised in regards to how it can be abused or if that law has any sort of detrimental effect to people if it passes. Do you think we should have
this is where the big
power to do that?
Scottish independence comes in, isn't it, as well? I don't know, because Scotland, they have the vast majority of their own laws. One very simple one that I use quite a lot is you can wild camp legally in Scotland, you can't in the UK. And that just shows you the difference between literally from one section of the UK to another section. Laws can change massively. Scotland's got their own police force, which is all one force. They don't have sort of constabularies for each part of Scotland. They have Police Scotland that covers the whole of Scotland. And I think realistically, we can. I don't think we can. I think we have to work cohesively. We have to agree to their laws, providing it's not something overly dramatic. Then we should agree with their laws that they want to put in place for their country. After all, it is their country, and who knows Scotland better than anyone else? It's the Scottish people. Do I feel like Scotland should go independent? Is another question. I don't think they should. I like the UK as a whole. I prefer the UK as a whole. And but no, I think honestly, I don't think we should have the right to sort of veto anything that they do, Scott. Personally, I think we should be acceptance of what they want to do. Whether we agree or not agree with it, it's democracy at the end of the day. And that's what they're willing to do. That's what they want to do, then fair enough. Providing it's not going to put British people at harm's way, where for instance, they passed a law that we couldn't house our nuclear subs up there, for instance, then that could well be something that could be vetoed because it's having a massive adverse effect on defence capabilities, for instance. And that's one big argument that the Scottish always put in as we keep our Trident submarines up there. Thank you for listening to Political Chinwag with me, Jordan, and Scott and Zoe. Next week, we'll be introducing our first ever guest on the podcast, who is Roger Stone. And we cannot wait. So get your questions in, tweet us on Twitter, message us on Instagram, and so forth. And we'll look forward to interviewing Roger. Thank you. Bye.